NCAA is looking at expanding the playoffs again. So we talked about this in an old video that once we get through 2024, 2025, they figure out the format, 5+7, and then moving into 2026, that's when it stops. In 2026, they're looking at adding 2 more to make it a 14-team playoff. And I anticipate after that, it's going to go to 16, then 20, then 24, and whatever we get by 2030. But I'm kind of fascinated about the decisions they're making within this 14-teamer because there's some socialized frameworks that's being circulated around we got to talk about. Before we do that, welcome to Unfair Sports. I'm your host, Jay. Thank y'all for pulling up to the channel. Y'all know what it is. We're here talking a lot of college football here, especially OU football, college football in general, SEC football, having a blast doing it. And we're going to talk about in this video the NCAA's choice of expanding the playoffs again and how that could potentially lead to the SEC and the Big Ten breaking off. So let's talk about what's being socialized right now and kind of break down what this format looks like. And I'll tell you kind of the implications on your favorite teams, especially my Sooners, what this actually going to mean to us long term. So, of course, The Athletic, Yahoo Sports, all of them are all reporting that there's conversations right now between the College Football Playoff Committee and they're looking at an expansion into the playoffs again. And so in 2026, that's when that next change is supposed to hit. And what they're looking at is a 14-teamer right now with like a 3-3, 2-2-1 format. 3-3, 2-2. One format. And what that means is that you'll get automatic bids from the Big Ten and SEC, which be your 3s. Your 2s are going to go to the Big 12 and ACC, 1 for the group of 5, and then 3 at-large spots, in which that's where a team like Notre Dame would sit, right? The one that's looking like they're definitely being out on all of this. And they're going to have to pick a conference. It's going to happen. They ain't going to have a choice. They're going to have to pick a conference. And the question is will these conferences allow them to keep their TV deal? They probably should let them keep their NBC deal for the most part. Yeah, that's gonna be the question there. So if they do that, what it sounds like is they go that 3-3-2-2-1 model. The SEC and Big Ten will get the bye week, the first 2 weeks. So yeah, the SEC and Big Ten champion will have 2 weeks of bye weeks while everybody else play these games to work their way to them. And there's a couple of flaws in the idea behind that, but I'm going to keep going. Because initially the conversation was about the Big Ten and the SEC getting 4 automatic bids each, right? That'd be 8. And then 2 to the Big 12 and the ACC. That puts you down there at what? 12. And then 2 at-larges at that point. 1 group of 5 and then 1 at-large. For the most part. And so we got to throw a bone to the group of 5s. I know a lot of y'all thinking, why are we doing this for the group of 5s? What makes you think they deserve? And look, if we're going to have 130 something teams in college football at this level at FBS, we kind of got to throw the bones to the smaller ones unless we decide to break off completely and then all the FBS is completely destroyed. You have a group of 5 set up and then you have a power 4 set up with the power 2 lingering wherever they're going to go. But with that, kind of what that means is it looks like if you win the conference championship, you're going to get 2 weeks off. If you at least play in the conference championship and you're the highest rated team in either the Big Ten or the SEC, so like for my Sooners, as long as they're in the top 3 somehow, either winning the conference runner-up, or right there as the first team out, they will have an opportunity to make it into the playoffs. Because even with 3 at-larges, it's going to all depend on where everybody's ranked. But at the same time, we know the biases of the college football playoffs. So it's kind of fascinating. But the Big 12 and ACC champions will, of course, get their spot. But then they'll have to play in the first round. They'll be a quote-unquote long shot for first-round buys. They will be playing all the way up, which means that's an advantage for the Big 10 and SEC. So the question is, would the Big 12 and ACC even agree or buy into this idea? Because in a way, that puts them at a massive disadvantage. What happened to the game that we loved? Why are we going through all of this? College football ain't never had an actual good definitive way of picking a champion. We just kind of coined it based upon, what it looks like. Now we're here to this. And it's going to expand. They're going to do it because of money. Opportunity to make even more money. Still ain't going to pay the players. But their opportunity to make more money. It's crazy, right? So I ask y'all this. Hop in the comments. Tell me what y'all think. Does it make sense for the NCAA to move into this bigger format? Does it make sense to go into a 14-team format? Because I personally don't think it makes much sense adding to the 12. We haven't even tested the 12 out yet to see how that's going to look. And we're already looking at 14, which is bothersome as it is. Now, at this point, the other thing that goes with it is if none of these changes goes through, there was a report that the SEC and the Big Ten are exploring just breaking off completely, doing their own thing, creating their own quote-unquote league, which means if that happens, expansion will continue. There will be expansion again. The Big Ten is going to definitely go up to probably 20 to 24 teams. The SEC is going to follow them. So that means that the ACC or the Big Ten, one of those two is going to lose a lot of key teams. And to be honest, I think it's the ACC. Y'all hop in the comments. Tell me which conference is going to lose more teams if the Big Ten and SEC creates their own league. Because I'm saying it's going to be ACC. You're going to have Clemson and Florida State definitely out. They're going to throw the deuces. Miami's probably going to be one just because they're a brand. They're not that big of a brand anymore, but it's still Miami. Everybody knows Miami. I'm sensing they would end up. Ooh. And then probably North Carolina. But then what happens with basketball, right? There's way more questions than we have answers for. But it looks like there's a chance that these two teams, because I don't see how the Big 12 and the ACC is going to agree to these terms. They're going to end up breaking off and just separating. And I don't see why their TV partners, which ESPN would have to figure out, as well as Fox, how to absorb these teams, pay more money for them, because they're going to have to pay more money for them, and have this whole new league that is outside of college football. Outside of the NCAA, that is. Because the NCAA ain't figured it out. So, conference realignment's not done. I'm just going to tell y'all that now. We're going to see a lot more of that. So, hop in the comments. Let me know your thoughts. I'm kind of curious to what y'all think about the way this is going because, boy, things are getting weird. If you made it this far, you like the content, please hit that like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. Love for y'all to join this family of college football fans. We'll keep y'all up to date on all this college football playoff stuff. We're going to be talking more about expansion because changes are coming down the line. I promise you. All right, so check out one of these videos. This is, of course, another good one. So is this one. Check them out. We'll talk soon. Peace.